Oh my, I've got into a state over this one. It was going to be a 5-minute quickie. It was going to be, I didn't know what I was going to talk about. And then it just went on and on and on. In a great way too, in a great way. Well, I think a great way. So have a listen and just let yourself, flow into this one. Because I think there's something special. As usual, it'll change your life. That's what we do here. We are life changers. Well, you change your life. So do enjoy. A bit longer than I thought, but hey, what the hell?
Warning.
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 Warning. You are entering into the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. Too late. Personal Development Unplugged.
So imagine a muddy stream, as it were. It's really slowly moving along. So slow that it's got those stagnant smells. And it's just there. It's not really doing anything at all. In fact, there's just, nothing to notice. It just moves so slowly. In fact, it just gets a little boring, I guess. You know, why would you want to watch a very slow moving stream? But then on the other hand, imagine that rapid white water that's going so fast, it's bubbling all over the place, going over and under rocks. It's constantly going it's nothing, and it's catching things, and it's moving things around and throwing things to the side, and everything is going so fast that you just can't, it's like an overwhelmed situation. Or imagine it being just right. Being beside a lovely river that's flowing, and it just seems to have no effort whatsoever. It's clear because it's going just the right speed. And it just looks so wonderful. You know, there's a slight ripple on the surface maybe, reflecting the light. And it just seems so idyllic. In fact, things float on it, floating across the surface, and they just seem to flow effortlessly. And it's just a wonderful place to be. It's as if time stands still. You can hear things. You can concentrate. You can be totally involved and focused. Yet, you're spending no energy whatsoever. But you are actually spending energy. But it's positive energy, which seems to just, it is. It's in abundance. Infinite. What am I talking about, Cluffy? Well, I'm talking about being in the flow state. Because understanding how to recognize a snowflake, understanding how to recognize the snowflake, the flow state, it's recognizing when you're not in the flow state. Because when you're in the flow state, time does stand still. Can you remember those times when you've just done things and you've just done them so well? It was effortless. Time seemed to just disappear. And at the end of it, you've done some wonderful work. And the energy is still oodles inside of you. The old word, oodles. So how does that happen? And why would it be important to recognize when you're not in the flow? Because we obviously know that the ideal place to be would be in the flow state all the time, wouldn't it? Because you feel so good. You are focused. You are concentrated. You're aware of everything. And you're totally safe. And you've got access to all your knowledge and your wonderful emotions. So, that's why I think it's totally important to know when you're not in it. Because when you're not in it, then you can make some adjustments to get back into that flow state, or as close as possible to it. And the more you practice getting in the flow state, the more you won't have to practice, because it will become an unconscious process, won't it? You know, get that habit of just recognizing that this isn't the place I need to be, and what's happening, and make those adjustments. So here's the thing. This is going to take a lot of power of your imagination and my description. Imagine looking at a graph. So it's like a graph. You've got the upright bit and the bit that goes along the bottom from left to right. Well, if you put along the bottom the skill level, the challenge level, and the vertical axis, you put the challenge, the intensity of the challenge. And imagine then, something like a 45-degree angle, a band, a little width band, a line that has a width going from the bottom corner at a 45-degree angle. And anything within that band is your flow state. So as the challenge increases, your skill level's increased. And because your skill level's increased, you can have more challenge. And the more challenge you have, you keep on that skill level and keep, isn't that the mastery side? Doing what you know, knowing what you do. And stretching yourself, because you stretch yourself just far enough to the challenge. So you can learn that skill even more. And as you learn that, you stretch again. So imagine that 45-degree band. And that's where the flow state is. But the thing is, what's above that? When the challenge is too intense. It's stress and anxiety, isn't it? So when you're suffering stress, anxiety, overwhelm, it means you're out of that flow state, but also the intensity of your challenge is just too much. You need to stop, pause, back off, just a bit. But when you back off and get a clearer picture and just reduce that intensity just a bit, all of a sudden, now I can see clearly. Now I can start making progress. Because when you've got that stress and anxiety, how much progress are you going to make? And the thing is, how safe do you feel when you're stressed and full of anxiety? Well, you know the answer to that. It's, you're not safe at all. Or you don't feel safe because it's panic, stress, anxiety. I don't know what that is. And then your unconscious mind will go, well, I don't like this. This is no good for us. So I'm not going to do this again. Because if I do it again, you're just going to put yourself into that unsafe place of stress and anxiety. Now, that would be silly, really, because just by reducing the intensity of that challenge to get a clearer view, the stress, the anxiety would disappear, and all of a sudden, your skill level would meet the challenge, and you'd be in that flow state, and it would start to increase again. So after a short while, you'd be increasing your skill level, which means you can increase the intensity, and you're back to where you are, but in a wonderful state of flow. Now, on the other hand, what's below that band, that 45-degree band, when the intensity is so much lower than your skill level? What happens then when, things aren't challenging you enough? Your skill level is way higher than what you're doing. Yeah, boredom. Absolute boredom. And what happens to boredom? Where does our motivation go when we're bored, silly? Well, it just disappears, doesn't it? And are you likely to do the thing that you're doing? Of course you won't. So both ways, above with that stress and anxiety, below with the boredom, will mean that your outcome will not be achieved. It will just disappear. And you can see this working. People going to the gym, when they put so much intensity into their workout, what happens? They get injured. They pull a muscle. They're totally tired all the time. And when you're really tired, you don't use the right technique, which means you get injured again. And that time period gets longer and longer between. And the results are, well, they're not as good as they could be, because in fact you're not doing it anymore, and you have to stop. So you're putting stress and anxiety on your body, which means eventually you'll stop. And therefore your outcome of being fit, healthy, or personal best just go out the window. But what happens if you go to the gym? And you've seen those people. They've got the phone out, and they're on the bike, and they're pedaling so slowly on such an easy gear. And they're not really challenging themselves at all, are they? They could do more. And you can see them. They begin to yawn too, because they're so bored. And what happens? Why bother? I'm not going to the gym anymore. It's such a boring thing to do. And you see, that's what happens. And when you're when you really look to increase your skill level by stretching yourself again with that challenge, you can start making massive gains. And they increase, I can never say this word, can I? Exponentially, if that's the word. And suddenly when you look back, boom. Take another example. People overweight. And it's a good thing that people overweight, the ones who really think, well, I've now got to get healthy. I've now got to lose some weight because this is no good for me. That's absolutely awesome. Wonderful intention. So what do? They may suddenly go to the gym, go for a run. Oh, I've got to get fit and run this weight off. I'm going to run 5 miles today. And put so much intensity in them challenging their bodies, or have this thing where they've got to eat so many different diets, and you're challenging, and having so much intensity of all the different things you've got to do, and this, it becomes overwhelm. They get stressed, they get anxious. What do? One day later, it's too much. But what happens when they really just think, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to eat this food. It's the same food every day because I'm following this cabbage diet or any other vegetable. And this is all I'm doing. And I'm just not doing anything else. And the only thing I do is talk to people about my diet. And I look at my scales and nothing's happened. They're so bloody bored, they stop. Each one of these stoppings, whether it's through to boredom or anxiety, that intensity, is creating and reinforcing those limiting beliefs that you had about the gym, you had about diets, and just reinforce it. It's just not worth doing anymore because I'm still overweight, I'm still not fit. All because we didn't get into that one flow state. And the reason we didn't is because we didn't know how to notice where we were or where we are and make some subtle changes. Because it could be just a minute change, could make the whole difference. So I have a question about this. I'll give you some examples about in the gym and the weight loss, because they're the ones that come to mind straight away. But the question is, where else could we use this? Have a think yourself. Or you might even ask the question, where couldn't you use it? Because the answer to me was, this is everywhere. Because when I'm in the flow state doing something, it's awesome. I learn so much that I don't know I've learned. I feel so good. The people around me seem to just enjoy my company when I'm in the flow state because my ego's out the way. I'm allowing to, we call this thing about singing from your real voice, showing up, being the real you. When you're in the flow state, all that other crap gets out the way because you're using this mastery thing, doing what you know, knowing what you do, stretching yourself just a little bit, putting yourself out just outside that so supposedly comfort zone of yours, and suddenly realizing the barrier's not even there. I'm going to talk about that in another podcast because I'm really into that bit. So that's what would happen. And then I had another question. Well, this is okay, Paul, because so many people tell you all of this. I've given you some great examples. I've given you, I think, a great question, because if you got Jenny Journal out and you said, where could I use this? Where else could I use this? Or where couldn't I use it? You'd come up with some wonderful answers. Answers which are, particular to you, specifically to you. But it's the essence of this unplugged personal development podcast is to give you the how. How can we use this? So, very much into then, we need to measure. So, do you remember the 5 steps of success? Remember, know your outcome. Take action. So we're taking action, we're doing stuff. But the third step is to be aware. Be aware where we are, measure what we do. Where were we a week ago, a month ago? Where am I now? So if you're stressed, notice what is stressing you. Where is the challenge too intense? Get some questions like, how could I do this if it was easy? What other ways can I do it and be comfortable? Who do I know that could help me? All these lovely little questions that will spark something in your unconscious mind to give you the right answer. And as you then, one of the things I remember a long time ago, it was a secretary of ours, and I was in another office, working from home office. She was in the office, phoned me up in tears. She was overwhelmed because she had so much to do. Everything was so intense. It all had to be done today. Well, in fact, she was talking as if it all had to be done right now, although we said we don't know what's impossible, but that was impossible. She could not do them all right now. So the challenge was, take away the overwhelm. Because she had the skills to do each one of them. That was not the problem. But it was that overwhelm causing stress, anxiety, because the challenge of doing it all was too much. So the simple thing I said was, two things. What's the most important? What has to be done first? If nothing else got done, what has to be done? And she said, I have to do, at that time she was doing the wages. I have to put the wages on the computer, because if that doesn't get done, no one gets paid, there's no point in being in business. So I said, right, everything on your desk that isn't anything to do with the wages, put in a box and slide the box out of your office, out of sight. And she said, I can't do it. I said, do it. So she said, okay, Paul, because he's still in tears by now. I said, just trust Uncle Paul. Because she didn't call me Cluffy, but it was Uncle Paul. Trust Uncle Paul. She put everything in the box, put the box in the hall, closed the door. And I said, right, phone me when you're done. And she phoned back. And her voice had changed completely. She said, oh, I've done all that. It wasn't so bad after all. Got that done. I really got it done really quickly. And everything all adds up. We're ready to go. But then she started to go, oh, no. So, okay, what's number 2 on your list? That has to be done. And she said, oh, I'm starting to get this now. So she went to the box, got the stuff out for number 2 on her desk, closed the door. End of the day, she phoned up with such I thank you so much, Paul. That was brilliant. What did we do? We just noticed the intensity of it all and did one small thing, simple thing. Doesn't have to be difficult. It wasn't therapy. So when you notice you're on that side of stress and anxiety, notice what's causing it. What is causing this stress? And what can I do? What is possible? What's the one thing I need to do above all the rest? And then go do it. And obviously, the other thing is I've got no motivation to do this, which means you're in the boredom stage. So what we have to do then is increase the intensity, increase the challenge to match your skill level. So think, how can I make this more interesting, more challenging? Could I do more? What is the point of this? What is the outcome of this? And how can I get it another way that makes it so interesting that when I get that outcome, I'm going to feel really good? Simple little ways. But it does mean stopping, pausing. I've talked about that in a long time ago in the FMQs. Stopping and pausing. Just literally stop and think. Focus on what your outcome is. Because that's what when we're bored and when we're under stress, we've forgotten the outcome. We don't know where we're going. One is not even bothered looking, and the other one is, I can't see it. So just stop. That big breath. I recently did the FMQ. It'll totally change your life, which is about reviewing. Use a little bit of that. Just review where you are and review what you've got to do. And then use those 5 steps. 5 steps of success. You've seen your outcome. You've re-identified it. You're then taking some inspired action just on that outcome, the thing that's going to get that outcome. And as you take that inspired massive action, you then become aware how well you're doing. So you can continue to remain in that flow state. Because if you don't, Or if you've, as you review where you are and maybe you're getting too stressed or too bored, fourth step, we become aware of where we are and make those subtle changes. And also that fifth one, what is the physiology and psychology of the success model that you want for that particular, that skill, that thing you're doing? And be it, act as if. And I guarantee you then, the old Cluffy guarantee, that you won't notice being in the flow state. Because when you're in it, you're just in it and things just happen. And the more you do this, and the more you stop and review where you are, even if sometimes even you're in the flow state, let me just stop. Yeah, this is it. Because you're telling your body, your unconscious mind, this is where I want to be, or this is where I don't want to be, and these are the steps I'm going to take. And then, because this is something you really enjoy doing, that you enjoy the feeling of being stretched, being in that flow state and getting the excess of it, your unconscious mind is going to make this an unconscious process. So the more you do it consciously, then you'll forget to do it because you'll remember unconsciously to do all this wonderful work to keep in the flow state. Now, if you're listening intensely, the both of every one of you, your unconscious mind knows it already. And you might be really surprised what changes now. Now you've listened to it. That's a little bit of language, isn't it? Just let that go in and see what happens. Now, this was going to be a 5-minute quickie. I don't think it's a long podcast, but it's something that I think we just need to be in. And the more you strive for that flow state, things will be awesome. And it's like, when someone comes in the room and they've got a negative feeling about them, you know it. You can feel it. Someone comes in with a room and they've got an upstate, you know it. They don't have to tell you about it. You just know it. Well, when you're in the flow or they're in the flow, they get it. And the room becomes full of that type of vibration, which means we are then creating, what would it be like if everyone around you was just in that flow state of being stretched in their skill level to just the right intensity that they grow and enjoy their life and get all the results, their outcomes they want. Because that's when ideas happen, doesn't it? Because you start thinking, I can do this. And in fact, I can do that. And what would happen if I did this? And then the pleasure that comes from just being there, making that environment around us evolving in such a wonderful way as you continue to grow. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? That would be awesome. Yeah. Anyway, do have more fun than you can stand. I would really, really love to have some feedback. Notice how you can check your flow state in it and out of it. And I'd love to know the results you get, your outcomes you achieve quicker than you thought. Love to hear that. Please email me, paul@paulclough.co.uk. So there you go. Until another time. Have more fun than you can stand and live with, as one big man used to say, with passion. Oh, before you go, you know I was going to say this. Hey, if you have got one thing out of this, and I know you have more than one, please share it with your friends. Share it with anybody, everybody. Let's create this world that we live in the flow state. Let's just share everything about this if you could. I believe it's like your way of paying this forward and helping people develop. So it'd be great if you could just share it to everyone. And if you haven't done already, it'd be great if you could subscribe in the iTunes channel. Castbox is another great place to subscribe. But if you could go to iTunes and give a review and put a few stars up, that would be awesome too, because that's another way that people become aware of what's happening in this world and this podcast. So do that, please. Remember, all those hypnosis tracks are on paulcloughonline.com. I have to think about that. /podcast. Go there. Emails are safe as houses. And you'll have all the processes that go with these podcasts. It'll be awesome. And have a look around paulcloughonline.com if you would. There's some lovely programs there. Yeah, I know they're paid, but that's what helps sponsor this program. Nothing else. No interviews, no adverts. Just my little pocket. So that's it, really. That's it. Be well and shine. Bye-bye now.
Warning, you are now leaving the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. It's time to fly on your own. Be brave, my friend.
Personal Development Unplugged.